The night sky was unusually clear, and for miles around, people stood in silence, their eyes fixed on the moon. News channels had been covering the strange seismic activity for weeks, but now, everyone could see the cracks. Jagged, deep fissures running across the lunar surface, glowing with an eerie bluish light. For the first time in human history, the moon was changing. Dr. Ethan Cole, a renowned astrophysicist, stood on his apartment balcony, staring at the live broadcast on his tablet, while glancing up at the sky every few seconds. His life's work had been to understand the universe, and now it seemed the universe had decided to answer in ways he could never have predicted. "They say it's going to blow any minute now," said Jason, Ethan's neighbor, peeking over the railing. He was a laid-back guy who never seemed to care much about anything, but even he looked uneasy. "You think it's dangerous?" Ethan shrugged. "I don't know, man. We've never seen anything like this before. Could be anything." The world had been on edge since the first tremors were detected a month ago. At first, it had been dismissed as minor tectonic shifts, but when the fissures started appearing, spreading wider and deeper, the scientific community had no explanation. And then came the light, the strange glow that emitted from deep within the moon's core. Ethan's tablet buzzed with a new notification. NASA confirms lunar core anomalies. Massive underground structure detected. He clicked on the headline, and the news anchor's voice trembled with excitement and fear. "Repeat, seismic sensors have confirmed that the moon's core is not solid as previously believed. Preliminary scans suggest the presence of a massive artificial structure beneath the lunar surface. This development raises significant questions about the origin and purpose of our moon." Jason whistled. "Man, it's aliens. It's got to be aliens." Ethan didn't respond. He couldn't. His mind was racing, processing the implications. If the moon wasn't just a natural satellite, if it was an artificial construct, what did that mean for humanity? Who, or what, put it there? Suddenly, a brilliant flash of light lit up the sky, brighter than anything Ethan had ever seen. He and Jason both gasped, instinctively shielding their eyes. "It's happening," Ethan whispered, his voice barely audible over the deafening silence of the world around them. The moon had split wide open, and chaos erupted around the globe. The split wasn't just a visual spectacle, it was releasing something massive. Fragments of lunar rock tumbled out into space, and from the heart of the moon, dark shapes began to emerge. They looked like ships, sleek and angular, moving with precision and purpose. On the ground, scientists, military officials, and governments scrambled to understand what was happening. Within hours, the largest countries in the world had mobilized their space defense forces, but nothing could prepare them, or the rest of humanity, for what was coming. "We're receiving reports from multiple observatories," said a voice over the international news feed, "that objects, possibly spacecraft, have begun emerging from within the moon. Their origin remains unclear, and attempts to communicate have so far failed." But it wasn't just alien ships that had been released. As the world watched in horror, reports began pouring in from every corner of the globe. Strange energy readings, bizarre weather patterns, and something much worse. People were changing. Ethan stood in the control room of the Global Astrophysical Research Center, monitoring the lunar activity. All eyes were glued to the data pouring in. Suddenly, he felt a sharp pain in his chest, like a lightning bolt had struck him. His vision blurred, and his heart raced wildly. His knees buckled, and he collapsed to the floor. Ethan, his colleague, Dr. Marcus Graves, rushed to his side. "Are you okay?" Ethan couldn't answer. His body was burning, every muscle seizing and convulsing. And then, as quickly as it had started, the pain stopped. He gasped for air, looking up at Marcus. "I'm fine," he muttered, though he knew that was far from the truth. When he stood, something had changed. He felt stronger, clearer. His senses were heightened. Everything around him seemed sharper, more vivid. It was as if his mind had unlocked some hidden potential. He could see the flow of data on the screens more clearly, analyze it faster, understand things he shouldn't have been able to process so quickly. "Something's happening to people," Marcus said, looking at the newsfeed. The broadcast was filled with reports of people experiencing sudden, unexplained transformations. Some were becoming faster, stronger, more intelligent. Others were reporting heightened senses or even stranger phenomena, like the ability to manipulate objects with their minds. "It's not just the moon," Ethan said, his voice steady but filled with dread. "It's us. The moon's release, it's affecting us." As the days passed, the world fell into disarray. Governments tried to maintain control, but the transformations happening across the globe were unpredictable. Some people, like Ethan, had gained enhanced cognitive abilities. Others had become physically stronger or more agile. But not all changes were benign. Reports of violent mutations and uncontrollable power surges began to surface, and soon, the transformed were being hunted down by military forces, feared for what they might become. In the chaos, a message was intercepted from one of the alien ships. It was a warning. "You must not awaken." The words reverberated across every communication channel, translated into every known language. It wasn't directed at humanity. It was a command for the entities within the moon. Whatever had been locked inside for millennia was never meant to see the light of day. But it was too late. The moon had hatched, and humanity's true form was being unleashed. The leadership of Earth convened in a global emergency session. Scientists and military strategists huddled together, trying to make sense of the information they had. Ethan had been summoned, along with other top researchers, to assist in deciphering the ancient technology and the nature of the transformations. "The aliens knew," Marcus said grimly, reading the latest data they'd compiled. "They've known about this for centuries, maybe millennia." The moon was a containment facility. It was keeping something inside, something connected to us. Ethan stared at the holographic display in front of him, showing a detailed scan of the moon's core. "And now that it's been released, we're changing." Marcus nodded. "And the galactic powers that be aren't going to let us evolve without a fight." Just as he said that, alarms blared throughout the facility. Ethan turned to the nearest screen, his stomach dropping. "They're here," Marcus said, his voice barely a whisper. Above Earth, the alien fleet descended. The alarms echoed through the facility as their screens flickered, showing the alien ships breaking through Earth's atmosphere. Ethan tried to calm his racing heart, but the gravity of the situation was overwhelming. No one knew what these ships intended, whether they came in peace or, more likely, to crush what they had feared would happen for so long. The moon's secrets had unraveled, and so had humanity. "They're not here for diplomacy," Marcus muttered, staring at the monitors. The alien ships spread across the planet in formation, surrounding major cities and hovering ominously above military installations. Earth's defense forces scrambled to respond, but against such advanced technology, it felt futile. Ethan glanced at Marcus. He was focused, more so than Ethan had ever seen him. It was like something in him had clicked. Maybe it was the transformation, but Marcus was always sharp. Now he was something else entirely. "Ethan," he said, turning to him, "I need you to run the scans again." Ethan blinked. "The lunar scans." Marcus shook his head. "No on us. The data about our transformations. I think we're missing something." Ethan didn't hesitate. He moved quickly to the nearby console, his fingers dancing over the keys, inputting commands to analyze the readings of the affected population, people like Marcus and himself, the ones who had undergone changes since the moon cracked open. The data streamed in, and Ethan's stomach turned as he read the results. "It's not just a random mutation," he said quietly. "These changes, they're unlocking something." Marcus nodded grimly. "And the aliens know it." Before Ethan could ask what he meant, a booming voice came over the intercom system, reverberating through the facility. "Dr. Cole, Dr. Graves, report to command immediately." They exchanged a glance and headed for the control center. As they entered, The tension in the room was palpable. Screens showed live feeds of the alien ships positioned above cities: Los Angeles, London, Beijing, all under silent siege. General Andrews, the man in charge of Earth's defense, stood at the center of the room, barking orders into a headset. When he saw Ethan and Marcus, he motioned them over. "Gentlemen, we've got a situation," he said, pointing to a live feed from the Pentagon. "They've sent a message. They're demanding we surrender, or they'll destroy our cities." Ethan swallowed hard. "And if we surrender?" "They're offering to contain the threat," the general said, his voice laced with skepticism. "They're claiming that our transformations are dangerous, that humanity wasn't meant to evolve like this." Marcus narrowed his eyes. "They want to stop us from becoming what we're supposed to be." General Andrews nodded. "Exactly." Ethan's mind raced. The transformations, their heightened abilities, the mutations, they weren't just some side effect of the moon's cracking. It was part of a much larger design, a plan set in motion long before any of them existed. The moon had been a prison, keeping their true potential locked away. And now that it had been breached, the aliens wanted to put humanity back in the box. "We can't let them do this," Marcus said firmly. "This isn't just about us. It's about our future." The general looked skeptical. "And what future is that, exactly? We don't even know what we're turning into." Marcus didn't flinch. "Something better. Something more. We've been held back for centuries. This is our chance to evolve, to take our place among the stars." There was a beat of silence, broken only by the hum of the machines around them. Finally, the general sighed, rubbing his temples. "I hope you're right, Doctor. Because if we're wrong, we might not live to see that future." The alien ships remained in position, unmoving, watching them. It was as if they were waiting for something, for humanity to make the next move. Meanwhile, the world was in chaos. Governments tried to maintain order, but the transformations had affected too many people. Some embraced their newfound abilities, while others feared what they were becoming. Riots broke out in major cities, and military forces were stretched thin, not just preparing for a possible alien invasion, but trying to contain the unrest at home. And then there were the whispers, rumors spreading like wildfire. People claiming to have visions, speaking in cryptic phrases about ancient truths and forgotten histories. The moon's release had done more than alter their biology. It had triggered something deeper, something primal in the human mind. Marcus and Ethan were holed up in the research facility, working around the clock to understand what was happening. The scans showed that the transformations were accelerating, but it wasn't random. There was a pattern, a sequence. Humanity wasn't just mutating. They were evolving towards something specific. "There," Marcus said, pointing to the data on the screen. "That's the key." Ethan frowned, leaning in closer. The data showed a distinct genetic marker, one that hadn't been present in any human genome before the moon's cracking. It was as if something had been added, an extra strand of DNA, dormant until now. And it wasn't just in them. It was in every human on Earth. "It's like a switch," Ethan murmured. "Something was activated when the moon cracked open." Marcus nodded. "And the aliens know what it is." Ethan stared at the screen, his mind racing. What were they becoming? Before Marcus could answer, the facility's power flickered. The lights dimmed, and the hum of the machines grew quieter. A cold chill ran down Ethan's spine as he glanced around. "Backup generators should have kicked in by now," Marcus said, frowning. He moved toward the control panel, but before he could reach it, the room plunged into darkness. For a moment, there was silence. And then, out of the blackness, a voice spoke. "You must not resist." It wasn't coming from the speakers. It wasn't even human. The voice was deep, resonant, and filled with authority. Ethan could feel it vibrating through his bones, like an echo of something ancient. "We warned you," the voice continued. "You must not awaken." Ethan felt a surge of panic. "Who are you?" he demanded, his voice trembling. "What do you want?" There was a pause, and then the voice spoke again. "We are the Wardens. You were never meant to evolve." Ethan glanced at Marcus, whose face was pale in the dim light. He opened his mouth to speak, but before he could, the power came back on, flooding the room with harsh fluorescent light. The voice was gone. Marcus exhaled sharply. "The Wardens," he muttered. "Who the hell are the Wardens?" Ethan didn't have an answer, but one thing was clear. Whoever they weren't just here to contain humanity. They were here to stop them from becoming something more. The alien ships descended from the sky like predators honing in on their prey. Their sleek black surfaces shimmered under the sunlight, casting long shadows over the cities below. Earth's military scrambled into position, readying their defenses, but it felt like ants standing in the path of a storm. Marcus and Ethan stood in the command center, watching the live feeds. Ethan's hand shook as he clutched the console, trying to make sense of the alien patterns. But what could they do? This wasn't a battle of equals. They were outgunned and outmatched in every way. The weight of it all pressed down on him. Humanity's survival hinged on the decisions made in the next few hours. "They're preparing to strike," General Andrews said, his voice grim. His gaze remained locked on the screens where alien warships hovered ominously. "They've given us an ultimatum. Surrender now or face annihilation." Marcus didn't look away from the data on his screen. "They're afraid of what we're becoming," he said. "They don't want us to evolve." General Andrews scowled. "And what do you suggest we do about it, Doctor?" "Let them wipe us out while we figure out what the hell we're turning into." Ethan could see the frustration in Marcus's eyes, but he kept his voice calm. "No, we need to buy time. If we can get to the source of this transformation, we might be able to control it." "You mean the moon?" Ethan interjected, his voice barely above a whisper. "The answer has to be there. We need to go back." General Andrews stared at them, incredulous. "You're telling me that while alien ships are about to obliterate us, you want to send a team to the moon?" Marcus nodded. "It's the only way. Whatever's happening to us started when the moon cracked open. The key to stopping them, or at least understanding what we're dealing with, lies there." The general hesitated, looking between them and the screens. The countdown to the alien strike had already begun. They were running out of time. He finally sighed, rubbing the bridge of his nose. "Fine," he said, "but if you don't come back with answers, it won't matter. Earth will be ashes." Within hours, a specialized shuttle was prepped and ready for launch. It wasn't just any spacecraft. It was the most advanced they had, outfitted for deep space exploration, and more importantly, speed. Time was something they had little of, and every second counted. Marcus and Ethan, along with a small team of elite astronauts and scientists, boarded the vessel, their hearts heavy with the knowledge that this could be a one-way mission. As they strapped into their seats, the hum of the engines filled the cabin. The launch countdown began, and Ethan felt the familiar tightening in his chest as adrenaline surged through him. "Are we really doing this?" he whispered, glancing at Marcus. His eyes were focused ahead, resolute. "We have to," he said. "It's the only chance we've got." The shuttle rumbled to life, and within moments they were rocketing toward the heavens, breaking through Earth's atmosphere and into the void of space. The sight of Earth shrinking below them was breathtaking, but it was also a stark reminder of what was at stake. The moon loomed ahead, its cracked surface glowing faintly as if it were alive. As they approached, a sense of unease settled over the crew. The closer they got, the more it felt like they were trespassing on something ancient and powerful, something that had been sealed away for a reason. They touched down on the moon's surface near the largest fissure, the crack that had split it open like an egg. As they disembarked, Ethan couldn't help but feel the weight of history pressing down on him. This was the place where it all began, the place where humanity's transformation had been set in motion. The ground beneath their feet was different than Ethan remembered from previous lunar missions. It pulsed faintly with an energy he couldn't explain, like the moon itself was alive, responding to their presence. They moved cautiously toward the fissure, their suits equipped with the latest scanning technology, though none of them were sure what they were looking for. "I'm getting strange readings," one of the scientists said, frowning at their tablet. "It's not normal. The energy levels are off the charts." Marcus and Ethan exchanged a glance. This was it. As they descended into the crack, the walls around them shimmered with an otherworldly glow. The deeper they went, the stronger the energy became, until it felt like the air itself was vibrating. And then they reached the core. At the heart of the fissure was a massive chamber, its walls lined with strange, pulsing symbols. In the center of the room stood a monolithic structure, glowing with the same energy that permeated the moon. It looked ancient, far older than anything they had ever encountered. And it wasn't human. "What is this?" Ethan whispered, his voice barely audible over the hum of energy in the air. Marcus approached the structure, his eyes wide with wonder. "It's a beacon," he said. "A signal. It's been here all along, waiting to be activated." Ethan frowned, trying to process what he was saying. "A signal to who?" "To us," Marcus said, turning to face him. "This is what the wardens were trying to stop. They imprisoned our potential, locked it away here on the moon. But now it's been released." Ethan stared at the structure, his mind racing. So the moon wasn't just a prison. It was the key to their evolution. Marcus nodded. "And the aliens are terrified of what we're becoming. That's why they're here. They want to stop us before we fully awaken." Before Ethan could respond, the ground beneath them shook violently. Alarms blared in their helmets as the structure began to glow brighter, pulsing with a blinding light. Something was happening, something they couldn't control. "We need to get out of here," one of the astronauts shouted, already heading for the exit. But it was too late. The light from the structure exploded outward, engulfing them in a wave of energy. Ethan felt it surge through his body, filling every cell, every nerve, every fiber of his being. And then everything went dark. When he opened his eyes, he was no longer on the moon. He was somewhere else, somewhere vast and infinite. The stars stretched out before him, but they weren't the stars he knew. They were different, brighter, more alive. And then he heard it, a voice deep and resonant, echoing in his mind. "You are the key," it said, not in words, but in pure understanding. "You are the future. You must awaken." Ethan didn't understand. Awaken? What does that mean? The stars shifted, forming shapes and patterns that danced across the sky. And in that moment, Ethan saw it. The truth. Humanity was never meant to remain as they were. They were always destined for something greater. The moon had been a cocoon, keeping them safe until they were ready to emerge. And now, they were ready. The light around him faded, and Ethan found himself back on the moon, lying on the cold, cracked surface. The others were still unconscious, but Marcus stirred beside him, his eyes fluttering open. "We're different," he whispered. Ethan nodded. "We've awakened." Above them, the alien ships moved closer, preparing for their final assault. But now, Ethan understood. They weren't just humans anymore. They were something more, something the aliens had feared for millennia. The alien ships inched closer, their sleek forms casting shadows over the lunar surface. Ethan could feel the tension in the air, as if the entire galaxy held its breath. But something had changed. The transformation they experienced in that chamber went beyond the physical. It was a fundamental shift in their perception, in their connection to the universe itself. Marcus rose to his feet first, his movements fluid as if the low gravity of the moon no longer affected him. Ethan followed, feeling lighter, more tuned to his surroundings. The other astronauts stirred as well, each of them sharing a silent understanding. They were not the same as before. "We need to make contact with Earth," Marcus said, his voice calm but firm. "They need to know what's happened." But even as he said it, the ground beneath them rumbled again. The fissure, the very one they had descended into, widened further, and the monolithic structure in the chamber below pulsed with increasing intensity. The energy that had engulfed them moments earlier was now spreading, radiating outward in waves that seemed to be building towards something massive. "What's happening?" Ethan asked, turning to Marcus. His face was lit by the glow from the moon's surface, his eyes reflecting a strange, otherworldly light. "The signal is broadcasting," he replied. "Not just to Earth, but to everything, every living thing in the galaxy." Before they could process his words, a brilliant beam shot out from the fissure, arcing into the sky, piercing the blackness of space. It was as if the moon itself had come alive, calling out to something ancient and far away. The alien ships that had been preparing to strike faltered, their movements uncertain. They had come to destroy humanity, to end their evolution before it could begin. But now they were witnessing something beyond their understanding. "We're not the only ones who've awakened," Marcus murmured, his eyes locked on the beam. As if in answer, the skies around the moon began to shift. The stars themselves seemed to ripple, their light bending and warping. And then, from the depths of space, new shapes emerged. Massive, towering vessels, unlike anything they had seen before. They shimmered with the same energy that pulsed from the moon, as if they were part of the same ancient design. The alien armada, once so confident in their superiority, now hesitated. These new ships dwarfed their fleet, and the energy emanating from them was unlike any known technology. It was primal, elemental. "They're not here to attack," Ethan whispered, feeling the strange sense of familiarity with these newcomers. "They're here because of us." Marcus nodded. The signal from the moon was a call, a beacon, and now the true caretakers of this galaxy are answering it. On Earth, the chaos continued. The alien threat had forced humanity into a state of high alert, with cities scrambling to protect themselves and militaries deploying every available asset. But the sudden appearance of the energy beam from the moon had left everyone in a state of confusion. General Andrews paced in the command center, barking orders, but even he couldn't hide the bewilderment in his eyes. "What's happening up there?" he muttered, watching the live feed from the lunar surface. The room buzzed with activity as analysts and scientists tried to decipher the readings coming from the moon. The energy levels were off the charts, unlike anything ever recorded, but there was no sense of immediate danger, no indication that the aliens were preparing to attack. "It's like the entire system is waking up," one of the technicians said, staring at their screen in awe. General Andrews narrowed his eyes. "Whatever it is, we need answers. Get me Marcus and Dr. Cole on the comms now." Back on the moon, Ethan and his team watched as the colossal ships descended toward them, their energy rippling across space like waves in an ocean. As they drew closer, Ethan could feel the presence of something vast, something far older than the aliens they had feared. These beings, these caretakers, were not here for war. They were here to witness. One of the ships hovered directly above them, its surface glowing with the same energy that pulsed from the moon. It was as if the two were connected, part of a larger design. And then a voice, no, not a voice, but a presence, entered their minds. "We have waited," it said, not in words, but in pure understanding. "You are the chosen, the guardians of life. Now, you will rise." Marcus's eyes widened, and Ethan could see him struggling to comprehend what was happening. What are you?" "We are the keepers of the awakening," the presence replied. "Long ago, we seeded the galaxy with life, guiding it, nurturing it. But there were those who feared what life could become. They imprisoned your world, locked away your potential so that you would never rise to your true form." Ethan swallowed hard, trying to process the enormity of what was being revealed. "And now you are free." The presence pulsed with an emotion Ethan couldn't quite identify, something between pride and sorrow. "The wardens are no more. Their time has ended. Now your time begins." The alien ships, those that had come to destroy humanity, began to retreat, their formation breaking as the massive vessels of the Keepers drew closer. They had lost. The moon had awakened humanity, and now no force in the galaxy could stop them. Marcus turned to Ethan, his expression a mix of awe and determination. "This is it," he said. "We've been given a chance to become something more, to take our place among the stars." Ethan nodded, his heart swelling with a sense of purpose he had never known before. They had been chosen, not just to survive, but to lead, to guide life in the galaxy towards a future brighter than any of them could have imagined. As the alien ships retreated, and the Keeper's vessels surrounded the moon, Ethan knew that nothing would ever be the same. Humanity had been unleashed, their true potential awakened, and the universe would never be the same again. As the Keeper's ships hovered above the moon, Ethan and his team found themselves enveloped in a soft, pulsing light. It was warm, comforting, like being wrapped in a blanket of pure energy. The presence in their minds grew stronger, more insistent. "You must understand," it said, the words echoing through their very beings. "The path ahead will not be easy. Your species has much to learn, much to overcome. But you are ready. You have always been ready." Ethan looked at Marcus, seeing the same mixture of awe and trepidation in his eyes. They were standing on the precipice of a new era, a future that had been hidden from them for so long. "What do we do now?" Ethan asked, his voice barely above a whisper. The presence seemed to smile, though there was no face to see. "You live. You grow. You become what you were always meant to be. The galaxy is waiting for you, for the light you will bring." With those words, the light intensified, engulfing them completely. Ethan felt a rush of energy, a surge of power that seemed to come from within. It was like every cell in his body was awakening, every neuron firing in perfect harmony. And then, just as suddenly as it had begun, the light faded. They were back on the moon, but everything had changed. The fissures that had once scarred the surface were gone, healed as if they had never existed. The monolithic structure in the core had vanished, its purpose fulfilled. Above them, the Keeper's ships began to ascend, their forms shimmering as they rose into the starlit sky. Ethan watched them go, a sense of both loss and hope filling his heart. They had been given a gift, a chance to become something greater, but the responsibility that came with it was immense. "We need to get back to Earth," Marcus said, his voice steady. "They need to know what's happened, what's coming." Ethan nodded, turning back to their shuttle. It seemed so small now, so insignificant compared to the vastness of what they had experienced. But it was their link to home, to the people who needed them now more than ever. As they prepared for the journey back, Ethan couldn't help but think of the changes that awaited them. The world they had left behind was not the one they were returning to. Humanity had been altered, transformed on a fundamental level, and it would be up to them, to the ones who had been touched by the moon's awakening, to guide their species into this new future. The trip back to Earth was strangely quiet, each of them lost in their own thoughts. The weight of what they had learned, of what they had become, hung heavy in the air. But there was also a sense of excitement, of anticipation. They were about to embark on the greatest adventure in human history. As they approached Earth, they could see the changes even from orbit. The planet seemed to shimmer with a new energy, a vitality that had been absent before. It was as if the awakening on the moon had sent ripples across the cosmos, touching every living thing in its path. They landed at the Global Astrophysical Research Center, where they had begun their journey. But the facility was buzzing with a new kind of activity now. Scientists and researchers from every field had gathered, drawn by the strange energy readings and the reports of the moon's transformation. As Ethan and his team disembarked, they were greeted by a crowd of eager faces, all hungry for answers. At the front of the group stood General Andrews, his expression a mix of relief and apprehension. "Dr. Cole, Dr. Graves," he said, his voice tense. "What the hell happened up there? What was that beam of light? And the ships? NASA's reporting that they just vanished." Ethan exchanged a glance with Marcus, a silent agreement passing between them. This was the moment, the point of no return. What they said now would shape the course of human history. "General," Ethan began, his voice clear and strong. "We've made contact. Not with the aliens we feared, but with something much older, much wiser. They call themselves the Keepers, and they've been watching over us, over all life in the galaxy, for longer than we can imagine." The crowd around them erupted into a flurry of whispers and shocked gasps. General Andrews' eyes widened, his face paling. "What? What do they want?" "They want us to join them," Marcus said, stepping forward, "to take our rightful place among the stars. The moon, it wasn't just a satellite. It was a seed, planted eons ago, waiting for us to be ready. And now we are." Silence fell over the group, a heavy, contemplative quiet. Ethan could see the gears turning in their minds, the realization of what this meant slowly sinking in. "The transformations," one of the scientists said, her voice trembling. "The changes people have been undergoing. It's all connected, isn't it?" Ethan nodded. "It's the awakening. The Keepers unlock something in us, something that's been dormant for millennia. We're evolving, becoming what we were always meant to be." General Andrews shook his head, a hint of fear in his eyes. "And what is that, exactly? What are we becoming?" "Something extraordinary," Marcus said, a smile playing at the corners of his mouth. "Something capable of wonders we've never dreamed of. The Keepers, they showed us a glimpse of what we could be, of the potential that lies within each of us. It's beautiful." As he spoke, a murmur ran through the crowd. People were nodding, their eyes shining with a new light. It was as if Marcus' words had sparked something in them, a recognition of the truth they had always known but never dared to believe. Ethan felt it too, that sense of purpose, of destiny. They were standing on the threshold of a new age, a future that belonged to them. And he knew, with a certainty that went beyond mere faith, that they were ready for it. "So what happens now?" General Andrews asked, his voice quiet but steady. Ethan looked out at the crowd, at the faces of the people who would shape this new world. "Now," he said, "we learn. We grow. We become the guardians the Keepers knew we could be. It won't be easy, and there will be challenges we can't even imagine. But we'll face them together, as one people, one species united in our purpose." As he spoke, he could feel the energy in the room shifting, the uncertainty and fear giving way to a new sense of hope and determination. This was the beginning, the first step on a journey that would take them beyond the stars and into a future bright with promise. In the days and weeks that followed, the world began to change. The transformations that had once been sporadic and uncontrolled became more focused, more intentional. People began to harness their new abilities, learning to control and direct the energy that flowed through them. Governments and institutions adapted, creating new structures and systems to support this emerging reality. Schools and universities developed programs to help people understand and manage their evolving capabilities. Medical and scientific research exploded, driven by a newfound desire to comprehend the full extent of human potential. And at the center of it all were Ethan, Marcus, and the others who had been touched by the moon's awakening. They became the teachers, the guides, sharing their knowledge and experience with a world eager to learn. There were challenges, of course. Not everyone embraced the change, and there were those who feared what humanity was becoming. But slowly, steadily, the world began to unite around this new vision of the future. As the months turned into years, the true scope of the transformation became clear. Humanity was not just evolving physically and mentally, but spiritually as well. The old barriers that had divided them, race, religion, nationality, began to fall away, replaced by a deeper understanding of their common destiny. And as they reached out to the stars, they found that they were not alone. Other species, other civilizations that had undergone their own awakenings, welcomed them into a galactic community of unimaginable diversity and wonder. Looking back, Ethan knew that this had always been their path. The moon had not changed them. It had simply revealed what had always been there, waiting to be discovered. And now, as they stood on the cusp of a new era, He knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them as one. For they were humanity, the children of Earth and the inheritors of the stars. And their journey was only just beginning. Years turned into decades, and the world continued to change in ways that once would have seemed impossible. The awakening that had begun with the moon's hatching had spread to every corner of the globe, transforming not just individuals but entire societies. Humanity had evolved, not just in their abilities, but in their understanding of themselves and their place in the universe. The petty differences that had once divided them seemed trivial now, relics of a past that was rapidly fading into memory. Ethan and Marcus had become legends, their names spoken with reverence by the generations that followed. They had guided humanity through those early years, helping them navigate the challenges and uncertainties of their new reality. But as the decades passed, they began to feel a new calling, a pull towards something greater. It was as if the universe itself was beckoning them, urging them to take the next step in their journey. And so, on a clear, starlit night, they gathered once again at the Global Astrophysical Research Center, the place where it had all begun. They were older now, their hair graying and their faces lined with the wisdom of years, but their eyes still shone with the same light, the same sense of purpose that had driven them all those years ago. "It's time," Marcus said, his voice soft, but filled with a quiet intensity. "The Keepers, they're calling us." Ethan nodded, feeling the truth of his words in the very depths of his being. "I feel it too. It's like we're being summoned, drawn to something beyond ourselves." Around them, others were gathering. The scientists, the leaders, the visionaries who had helped shape this new world. They too had felt the call, the irresistible pull of destiny. As they stood there, the air began to shimmer, the very fabric of reality rippling like the surface of a pond. And then, in a burst of light that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once, they appeared. The Keepers, vast and luminous, their forms shifting and changing like the stars themselves. They had come, not in ships or vessels, but as pure energy, manifestations of the cosmic forces that bound the universe together. Children of Earth, they spoke, their voices resonating in the minds and hearts of all who were gathered. "You have come far, grown much. You have become what we always knew you could be." Ethan felt a swell of emotion, a mixture of pride and humility that brought tears to his eyes. They had done it, achieved the impossible. And yet he knew that this was not the end, but merely the beginning of something even greater. "The time has come," the Keepers continued, "for you to join us, to take your place among the guardians of the cosmos. Your journey has prepared you, made you ready for the responsibilities that await." Marcus stepped forward, his face lit by the glow of the Keepers. "We are ready," he said, speaking for all of them. "We have always been ready." And with those words they began to change. Their physical forms, the bodies that had served them for so long, began to dissolve, breaking down into pure energy. It was a transformation unlike any they had undergone before, a shedding of the material world, and an embrace of something infinitely greater. As they rose, their essence merging with the light of the Keepers, Ethan felt a sense of joy and completeness that defied description. This was what they had been born for, the destiny that had been written in the stars since the dawn of time. Below them, the earth hung like a jewel in the velvet blackness of space. It was a world transformed, a testament to the power and potential of the human spirit. And as they ascended, becoming one with the cosmic forces that guided the universe, Ethan knew that their work, their true purpose, was only just beginning. They were the guardians now, the protectors and nurturers of life in all its forms. And as they took their place among the stars, they knew that they would never rest, never cease in their pursuit of the greater good. For this was the legacy of humanity, the gift they had been given, and the responsibility they had embraced. To shine as a beacon of hope and possibility, to guide and inspire the countless civilizations that shared the endless expanse of the universe. And so, as they became one with the light, Ethan and Marcus, and all those who had followed in their footsteps knew that they had finally come home, not to a place, but to a purpose, a calling that would echo through the ages and beyond the bounds of time itself. They were the children of Earth, the inheritors of the stars, and their journey, the journey of all life, would continue forever and always into the infinite reaches of the cosmos.